That brings me to Putin. Putin has been saying some cryptic things towards the U.S. this week. Said that Russia can play dirty too, talking about the terrorist attacks and claiming that the United States had something to do with the terrorist attacks. He also said, don't cry now when conflicts escalate after the U.S. refused to condemn Israel's airstrike on the Iranian embassy. But what's really alarming is Putin's first comment I said, where he said that Russia can play dirty too. First of all, he's becoming more and more certain that the U.S. was involved and behind the terrorist attacks that took place in Russia a couple of weeks ago. And even if that's wrong, even if you don't think that's correct, all that matters is Putin believes this. Putin is certain that the U.S. and the West and Ukraine was behind this terrorist attack. So if he's so certain of that, then that just lowers his patience with us has lowered dramatically. He's held great restraint against us, first of all, for our blindly backing of Ukraine. But also, he said this in the Tucker Carlson interview, that he believes that we have bases in Ukraine of men, maybe not directly fighting, but advisors advising Ukraine. I mean, he's had many reasons in his... Put yourself in Putin's shoes. He's had many reasons to escalate and launch an attack against us in the West, and he hasn't. But even if we weren't behind these attacks, if he believes that we are, that lowers his restraint dramatically, and it eliminates any chance of a peace resolution in Ukraine. It escalates the possibility of him dragging us into a conflict because, Putin and Russia, they love their people. Like that was the main motive for the war in Ukraine, was that they believed they were taking back their own people. Whether you think that's sensical or not, that's what he thinks. He thinks that he's taking back his own people. So he loves the Russian people. So when you launch a terrorist attack that kills, 120 or more Russian citizens, that's a big deal to Putin. And if he thinks that the United States was behind that and helped orchestrate that, that's not a good look. And it's not good to piss off another global superpower like that, especially when we've been fighting a war against him via Ukraine for the last 2 years, 3 years, 2 years, I think it was. Also, what does he imply that Russia can play dirty too? That's concerning. What does he mean by that? Does that mean he's going to launch attacks against us? He appears to be holding a position that the U.S. is losing globally. He's like his "don't cry now" comments. He's kind of speaking from a higher than the place of he's winning, we're losing, and we don't have our crap together. But what's really, like I said, the main concerning thing that I would take from that is he's certain, or acting like he's certain, that the United States was behind the terrorist attacks and helped orchestrate it. That's not good at all. We need to push towards common ground with Russia and the war in Ukraine and come to peace and learn to exist and coexist with Russia. We refuse to do that for some reason. We refuse to accept that the unipolar world is over. The multipolar world is here, of Russia and China being alongside us. And if we white knuckle it and don't let it happen, we're just going to be taken out. And it's just going to be China and Russia at the top. And if we don't go the route of making peace with Putin and Russia and coming to our senses and realizing that we have to come to terms with Russia and China if we're going to exist as a country in this new world, in the new world order, because it's not what it used to be of the United States just being able to dominate everybody that it doesn't like. You've got organizations like BRICS and Russia and China becoming more economically powerful in the world. We can't just sanction the crap out of people anymore and get our way. We have to realize this, and we can't just isolate ourselves from Russia and China, and they have to bow down to us, and they realize how powerful we are. They're becoming just as powerful as we are. They're maybe not quite there yet, but they're close enough to put up a fight with us. So we have to come to terms with Putin. And when he's saying stuff like this, like he can play dirty too, and just making more and more claims that we were behind the attacks in Russia, the terrorist attacks, that's not good. It's not trending towards a good direction. And look at the war in Ukraine. I'm going to be talking about this next. That's the next topic I'm talking about. Insanity that how NATO is going about this war in Ukraine. There's no end in sight in that war. That only pushes our relations with Russia further down the the rabbit hole. That only pushes it further towards negative. Our relations aren't getting any better. And there's no progress. There's no sign of progress in that area. There's no optimism to be had. Eventually, something's going to give. When Putin's saying, look, I can play dirty too, that's not a good thing. He will play dirty too if he has to. And even if we weren't behind these attacks, like I said, the main point is that Putin thinks so. And all he has to do is believe that. All he has to do is think that we were behind it, and we'll be his target. Like I said, he's held great restraint with us so far in the war in Ukraine. And I'm not a Putin supporter. Obviously, he's an authoritarian leader. But we have to also we have to call a spade. Like he's a global superpower leader him and China are about to be equal with the United States soon based off our foreign policies. So we have to, just because you don't like him doesn't mean we should start a war with him. Just because you don't like Putin doesn't mean that you should want a war between the U.S. and Russia. So our relations with Putin and Russia need to improve drastically and improve now. End the war in Ukraine, come to terms with Putin, and if we were behind those attacks, come to him and come clean with it, because that is ridiculous. First of all, if we were behind those attacks, to orchestrate a terrorist attack in another country to provoke Russia, try to get them into a wider conflict, is insane. That's so utterly stupid and self-destructive as a country. So, like I said, even if we weren't behind these attacks, Putin is saying rhetoric that makes you believe he's becoming more and more certain that we were behind the attacks. And his rhetoric towards the United States has not been good the last week or so. It's trending down. And when you look at what's going on with China and Taiwan too, we could be dragged into a conflict with them soon if we support Taiwan. It's not looking good for the United States. I've talked about this scenario in past episodes. Like the three big global superpowers are the United States, China, and Russia. And the two of China and Russia are uniting against the one. So if a conflict starts to where we have to fight them two, we're not winning. I'm sorry. China and Russia, you have China who has the biggest population in the world and Russia who has the second biggest population in the world. Actually, maybe India. But the largest landmass country in the world, and China, the most populated country in the world, we're not winning that fight. And they're two global superpowers against one. I don't care if we're the United States and we're the big bad United States. We've been on top of the world ever since World War II. We're not winning that fight. So we have to be smart and realize what's going on. But our leaders are so stupid and bloodthirsty and stubborn that they can't look far ahead. They can't look ahead to see, like, we got two conflicts against two global superpowers. One that's been going on for years, and another one that eventually is going to start. Maybe we should improve those relations so we don't start a World War III and lose. But that's what it looks like it's coming to. So Putin's rhetoric towards the United States has not been looking good over the last week, and I'm losing hope that our relations with Russia and Putin will improve. But the fact of the matter is, if we want to stay atop as a country and stay thriving as a country and hold our position of power as a country, we need to come to terms with them and accept that we can't just bully Russia anymore or try to. The world is different now. So that, on top of the China and Taiwan situation, looks like the United States is between a rock and a hard place now, and we can't blame anybody but ourselves.